to our very last preview of the 2015 IAAF World Athletics Championship. Beijing has laid on quite a show in that magnificent stadium. Right, so there are a few more gold medals to be decided. Let's start off with the early birds. Sunday morning, 7:30, the only place to be is in front of your TV watching the women's marathon, where Edna Kiplagat is going for 3 in a row. I think she had a little fall en route to her gold in Daegu. She had a magnificent ding-dong with Valerie Stroneo, the fantastic Italian who's tried to front run in Moscow. Edna Kiplagat came through. She's a major global star as far as marathons are concerned. She's done so much on the big stage across the city marathons like London, but she has said she's making Beijing her priority this year. A couple of other names to watch out for. Viseline Chepkesho, she was third in Paris and I was there to watch that race, so watch out for her. And a couple of the Ethiopians, Tigis Tufa ran really well in London, and Turfi Tsege, she had a fantastic outing in Berlin last autumn. So the Ethiopians will try and dethrone Edna Kiplagat. And remember, in the whole history of the female marathon in the World Championship, Ethiopia only have 1 bronze medal, a Selefes merger back in Berlin in 2009. So that is a ratio they'd like to change. So Steve, that's what's happening out on the roads. And what about that 1500 metres? That is going to be sensational.
Yeah, it's going to be a great race. It's got all the ingredients of a classic, really. You've got the Olympic champion from 2008, the great Asbel Kiprop. You've also got Makalufi, the winner in London. Those two alone would be enough to save her. Can Asbel Kiprop become the good Asbel Kiprop? And then there's the bad Asbel Kiprop. That's what he runs. He either runs incredibly well or incredibly badly. If he runs really well, he could wipe out that field almost with ease. He's an incredible talent. But there's 2 big Americans in here that could really cause problems. Centrich and Mazzana. Those 2 have won medals at most of the major championships, and they're very fast over the last 100 metres. So too Nick Willis from New Zealand, coming back into form at 32, I think it is, breaking his personal best this year, going under 3:30. Put that with the likes of Igadir, Cronier and a few others. It's going to be a sensational 1500 metres, and who knows who's going to win.
Well, some cracking track events for the very last day of this year's championship, and some amazing field finals as well. The men's high jump will be fantastic. Mutaz Barshim and Bohdan Bondarenko, the defending champion, have made 240 jumps look like a piece of cake. Not necessarily this season from Bondarenko, but they've really changed the dynamic of the high jump in the last couple of seasons when it was in danger of stagnating a little bit. But what's really interesting is that Barshim has been fantastic in the early part of the season, but we've seen a few uncharacteristic wobbles from him, scenarios where he's struggling to get over 230. But he loves the crowds, he loves the big stage, and if he can turn it on, he will entertain everyone in fine style. And speaking of entertainment, here's a guy not to take your eye off for 1 single second. Zhang Guowei. Now, China picked up a bronze back in 1983. This fella has gone 2:38 this season. I saw him do that jump, I think it was over in Eugene, and he went absolutely berserk. Came off the mat, gave it the big wiggle, and he loves playing to the crowd. So if one of China's favourites can get in amongst the mix with Bondarenko and Barshim, he could set this stadium on fire. So that's the men's high jump. Steve, what about the javelin?
Well, the javelin, obviously qualification there of 63 metres, no real problems for the stars there, unlike the high jump. Most of the big ones came through in their first round. Spartakova, the world leader, the world record, threw a massive throw, well over that, just literally almost a casual effort. The other ones to watch, I suppose, is Husong and Oberfell, the reigning champion, and second in the Olympics. Fantastic throw in a third throw to get over that distance. And also Vielgen, the South African, threw well about 64, 65 with ease. Almost all the women that qualified for that final are capable of throwing much further, and it's a very tight performance, I think, for whoever wins the first 3 in that particular discipline.
Great stuff, thanks Steve. Right, women's 5,000 metres. Saturday saw the men's with the likes of Mo Farah up against Caleb Ndiku and Edwin Soy. What's really interesting about this women's 5,000, no disrespect to the Kenyans in the field, they could certainly get in amongst the mix, as they did with the women's 10,000. But what a duel between 2 of Ethiopia's finest. Kenzebe Dibaba, we saw her win the 1500. She set the world record in that event earlier this season. Dibaba is going for the double. She's trying to win the same gold her sister won back in Paris in 2003 and in Helsinki in 2005. But she's up against Almaz Ayana, the Ethiopian who was 3rd 2 years ago, but she's since become the 3rd fastest athlete in history, behind only Meseret Defar and Dibaba's sister Tiranesh. These two, I think there's a tiny little bit of needle between them. Almaz Ayana ended up doing what she thought was more than her fair share of work when they both had a crack at the world record earlier this year. Dibaba ended up going for the win as opposed to doing her share of the work and trying to get that world record. There's a tiny little bit of animosity between the two of them, and so I think that makes it a cracking final with a little bit of spice that we don't always see from the East Africans. And who would bet against Genzebe Dibaba doing the double? She looked smooth as silk in the semi-final of the 5,000, and with that raw speed, 350, I'll say that again, 350.07 in the 1,500 metres. If she can produce that kind of speed towards the end of the 5,000, the double will surely be hers, but Ayana will leave her heart and soul on the track to ensure that it's her on top of the podium rather than her compatriot.
Well, we're coming to the big finales now, the 4x400 metres for women. That's going to be a massive clash between the Jamaicans and the Americans. The Jamaicans had 3, 4, 5 and 6 in the final of the individual 400 in the form of Jackson, Day, McPherson and Mills. Now you would think that would probably win any major championships, but oh no, because the Americans can throw even better cards down on the table. They had Felix that actually won that 400 metres and Francis, who was 6th in the race as well. On top of that, they had McCory, the fastest woman in the world, not even taking part in the individual. She was out of that because of Felix taking that individual place in the 400 itself. So she was waiting in the wings to come in for this 4x4. And then you throw in Richard Ross, the Olympic champion. So you've got massive talent in both of those. And at the moment, I don't think anybody can choose between one or the other.
Well, that women's race is going to be absolutely electric. As far as the men are concerned, it's always brilliant as far as the relays are concerned, whether it's 4x1 or 4x4, 1 lap or 4 lap relay. Always great to see the Americans up against the Jamaicans. And from a neutral's perspective, the tighter those races are, the better. But as far as the men are concerned, the quartet from the United States are absolutely brilliant. They looked razor sharp in qualification, and their secret weapon is LaShawn Merritt. Yes, okay, he was beaten by Wade Van Niekerk in the final of the 400 metres, but he set a lifetime best. He smashed 44 seconds, and when you bring him into the fold, along with the likes of Verberg, McQuay and Nellam, I think that's an inconquerable quartet as far as everyone else is concerned. The other slight area of concern from the Jamaicans' perspective, they got through quite comfortably in the end, but they looked as though there might have been a problem with Javon Francis. Now, we hadn't seen Francis in the individual 400, but remember a couple of years ago in Moscow, he ran an absolutely storming last leg to bring them right through for a place on the podium. He looked as though he was either really fatigued at the end of the semi-final in that 4x4 relay, or he may have had a problem with one of his hamstrings. I very much hope Francis is on the starting lineup in this final, because he can bring an added bit of spice from the Jamaicans. And a little outside tip, Rabbi Youssef, smashing 45 seconds for Great Britain, used to represent Sudan, now flying the flag for Britain, made the final in the 400. And Martin Rooney, who had to fight through an appeal for the right to take part individually for Great Britain and missed the birth of his first child, he's got that to look forward to when he goes home. He too annihilated his personal best, ran the fastest time we've seen from him since he competed here in Beijing in 2008. And if Rooney and Youssef can hit top form again, as they did in the individual races, maybe the Brits have got a chance of getting on the podium or getting close. They've got a great history when it comes to the 4x4. So that's it. It's our very last preview. It's been an absolutely rocking World Championship, and we hope it's a fitting climax on Sunday night here in the Bird's Nest. See you in London 2017.